I mean, he's out there giving 2-hour speeches. It's like Fidel Castro just keeps on talking. It's just word salads. The other day he had a town hall meeting. Now, I've done my share of town hall meetings. My experience is the goal of the town hall meeting is you meet with your constituents, with citizens, with voters. You answer their questions.
Barron Trump walked onto that stage carrying his father's oldest weapon, the birther lie, and aimed it directly at Barack Obama like he had been rehearsing it for years. Obama didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He asked one quiet question, and in the seconds that followed, Barron's face turned white. Donald Trump exploded in front of the entire nation, and a family's darkest secrets spilled across a ballroom floor that nobody was prepared to clean up. The ballroom had been dressed for significance. High ceilings, chandeliers burning white and gold, round tables covered in pressed linen stretching back to the far wall where the cameras had staked their positions hours before the first guest arrived. The event had been billed as the Future of American Leadership Forum, a high-profile gathering of former presidents, business titans, and the next generation meant to wrestle honestly with the real pressures facing the country in 2026. The cost of living, grinding families down, political division widening by the week, and the question of what real leadership actually looks like when the cameras are running and the answers have to hold up. But everyone inside that room understood the event's true center of gravity. Dead center in the front row sat Barack Obama and Donald Trump. Two men who had spent years exchanging blows across every platform available to them, now separated by nothing but polished floor and the thin social agreement that powerful men maintain in public. And right beside Trump sat his son, Barron, tall, sharp-suited, already carrying that unmistakable family posture. The confident jaw, the squared shoulders, the eyes that had been watching his father workroom since childhood and believed, walking in tonight, that he understood exactly how it was done. He did not understand. The host stepped to the microphone and cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama. The room erupted. People clapped hard and fast. A few rose immediately from their seats. Whistles cut through from the back. Obama didn't rush. He stood from his chair with the unhurried ease of someone who has been welcomed into rooms like this enough times to know that speed signals anxiety, and he had none. He walked to the podium like the floor belonged to him, not because he was performing ownership, but because he simply wasn't afraid of it. Trump did not clap. He sat with his arms folded tight across his chest, eyes tracking Obama from the moment he rose to the moment he reached the microphone. His jaw was set. His expression carried the particular coldness of a man who has already decided that what he is watching is a threat. He leaned toward Barron and spoke low, just above a whisper, just below what the nearest microphone could catch. "Show them what real power looks like." Barron gave a quick nod, his eyes lit with that spark, the one that comes from believing in a plan before it's been tested. He looked confident, almost excited, like the night ahead was going to be straightforward. He was about to learn otherwise. Obama's opening was warm, grounded, and immediate. He looked out at the room without theatrics and spoke about the pressures he knew most of the people in those seats were already carrying home every night. Groceries going up, rent climbing past what working families could sustain, gas prices that hit like a small punishment every time someone pulled up to the pump. "These aren't just numbers," Obama said, his voice carrying that particular quality. Not loud, not dramatic, but present in a way that made the room quiet down to receive it. "These are families skipping meals so their kids can eat, parents lying awake at night worrying about the next bill." He paused, letting it settle. Real leadership isn't about standing up here blaming the last guy or the next guy. It's about looking at what's happening right now and asking what we can actually do together to fix it. Applause moved through the room in a steady, genuine wave. Not partisan, not wild, but the sound of people who felt seen by something that had just been said plainly. Trump's eyes narrowed. The cold, mocking smile appeared, the one he deploys when he is watching something he has already decided to destroy. He leaned toward Barron again. Barron nodded. "He's finished, Dad." Trump said nothing, but the smirk stayed. Trump took the podium the way Trump always takes a podium, like the prior occupant had merely been keeping it warm. He moved fast, stood wide, gripped the sides like a man claiming territory. "Well," he said, drawing the word out with practiced ease, "that was quite a speech, wasn't it?" A few nervous laughs from the crowd. He went after Obama's record with the rapid-fire confidence of a man who has delivered this particular prosecution 1,000 times. Empty wallets, gas prices, grocery bills. He named each one and pointed the blame with a sharp extended finger directly at the man sitting in the front row. "Who built the foundation for all this mess?" Trump's voice dropped to that low, controlled growl. "Barack Obama. Plain and simple." The room went quiet. Trump kept moving, pacing slightly behind the podium, his volume rising with each exchange, each grievance stacked on the last like weight being added to a scale. He stopped, locked eyes on Obama, and then turned his head slightly toward Barron. "You've got something to say, don't you?" The entire ballroom went pin-drop silent. Cameras swung, phones lifted. Every eye in the room pivoted to the tall teenager in the front row. Barron hesitated for half a second. One breath, one blink, and then stood. He moved to the podium with long, practiced steps, adjusted the microphone down to match his height, looked out at a room of several hundred people with the composed expression of someone who has rehearsed this in front of mirrors and believed the rehearsal was preparation enough. He began with sarcasm dressed as restraint. "I guess we all appreciate a nice speech about unity and compassion," Barron said, his voice measured and deliberate. "Especially from someone who spent 8 years dividing the country." Sharp inhales from scattered points across the room. Nervous laughter from Trump's side. Obama sat perfectly still, hands folded, watching the young man at the podium with the quiet, analytical attention of someone identifying a chess position. Barron picked up speed. He talked about truth, about asking the questions nobody else had the courage to ask. His voice carried the confidence of a man who has been told he is brave for saying what he is about to say, and who has not yet learned the difference between courage and cruelty. Then he dropped it, calm, casual, the way someone delivers a line they've practiced until it feels weightless. "Some people still wonder if every president was even born to lead this country." 9 seconds. That was all it took. The line landed like a hard slap across the face of every person in that room. Gasps rolled through the ballroom in waves. One section, then another, then the back. A woman in the third row pressed her hand over her mouth. Reporters froze mid-note. The tension in the room shot through the roof so fast the air felt thin. Barron looked straight at Obama, eyes locked, and added, sharp and deliberate, "Truth hurts, sir." The silence that followed was suffocating. Barron leaned back slightly, hands folded in front of him, wearing the expression of a man who believes he has just won something. Trump gave his son a quick, approving nod from the front row. Then Barack Obama stood up. He did not rush. He did not glare. He simply unfolded himself from the chair, buttoned his jacket once with the same unhurried precision he brought to everything, and walked toward the podium with slow, deliberate footsteps that echoed across a ballroom that had gone completely silent. He did not grab the microphone immediately. He stood at the podium, looked directly at Barron, and when he spoke, his voice was low and even and carried to every corner without effort. "I've been in this game a long time," Obama said. "I've heard every cheap shot, every cheap joke, every cheap lie." A pause, not for drama, but to let the words find their proper weight. "And I learned one thing real quick. Mocking somebody else's story never makes your own story stronger." His calm eyes stayed fixed on the young man in front of him. Then he delivered it. One smooth, quiet line, unhurried, almost gentle, and absolutely devastating. "You sure you know where you come from, son? Are you Ivanka's kid or Melania's?" The room exploded. A single collective inhale so large and synchronized it sounded like one giant breath being pulled from the air. Phones nearly dropped from people's hands. A woman in the front row said, "Oh my God," out loud, the words escaping before she could stop them. Barron's face went completely white. The blood drained visibly. In seconds, from his cheeks, his jaw, his forehead. His mouth hung half open. His eyes went wide with the particular shock of someone who walked into a room believing themselves to be the most prepared person in it and discovered they were not even close. The smirk was gone, instantly, completely. Trump's head snapped toward Obama so fast it looked painful. His face turned deep red, then deeper. Veins surfaced on his forehead. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair with a force that turned his knuckles white. The ballroom was chaos, dressed in expensive suits. Whispers turning into murmurs. Murmurs turning into something louder. Cameras zooming in tight on Barron's pale, shattered face. Obama didn't smile. He didn't raise his voice. He stood at the podium with his hands sliding into his pockets, calm as Sunday morning, and let the silence do every remaining thing that needed doing. Then Trump shot halfway out of his seat. His voice cut through the noise like a command designed to make everyone in the room feel small. "Go wait in the car, now!" The command cracked through the air like a whip. Barron froze. His tall frame, so composed 20 minutes earlier, went suddenly, visibly smaller. Every head in the ballroom turned to watch him. Cameras followed his every step. He lowered his head, turned, walked toward the side exit. His footsteps echoed heavy on the polished floor as hundreds of eyes burned into his back. Right before he reached the curtain, Barron paused. He turned his head just enough to look back at his father for one long, raw second. His eyes were not angry. They were not defiant. They showed pain, mixed with something that looked like the beginning of understanding. Then he pushed through the curtain and disappeared. Obama returned to the podium quietly. He spoke about what the room had just witnessed, not as a political point, not as a victory, but as a lesson being passed between generations. When anger goes unchecked and mockery becomes the inheritance, it spreads from father to son, from the stage to the dinner table, from the public speech to the private belief. What starts as tough talk has a direction it travels, and the direction is always down. Then the big screen behind the stage flickered without warning. Nobody had touched the controls. An old audio clip began playing. Grainy, unmistakable, Trump's voice filling the ballroom from years past. "I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her." The clip looped once, then again. Trump exploded from his chair. "Turn that off! Kill it now!" He waved frantically toward the control booth, his voice booming, his composure entirely gone. The audio ran for several more seconds before the technical team cut it. The damage was irreversible. Trump's face went from red to a deep, sickly purple. He gripped the armrest until his knuckles disappeared. His jaw locked. His eyes stared straight ahead at nothing, the expression of a man whose carefully constructed public performance has just been dismantled in front of the people he most needed it to hold together for. Then Jasmine Crockett stood up from the aisle. Sharp suit, no-nonsense stride, a slim folder in one hand, and the unhurried energy of a woman who had been waiting for precisely this moment all evening. Nobody had put her on the program. This wasn't scheduled. She climbed the steps without asking permission, stopped a few feet from the podium, and looked out at the audience before locking her eyes directly on Trump. "Truth doesn't disappear," she said, "just because somebody refuses to look at it." She opened the folder, lifted the printed pages, timelines, highlighted quotes, documented records, and held them up so the screen behind her caught every detail. She walked through the record methodically. The 2015 and 2016 interviews, the pattern of public comments about his own daughter that no decent parent should make. The words repeated again and again across verified platforms. "These aren't rumors," Crockett said, her voice cutting clean through the silence. "These are your words. On record, repeated." Trump exploded. "That's out of context. You're twisting everything." But the room had already processed what was on the screen. Obama nodded toward the booth. A second clip rolled. 15 seconds. Devastating. Trump's unmistakable voice describing his daughter's appearance to a laughing interviewer, while Melania sat nearby. The room buzzed with low, stunned silence. The particular quiet that descends when an audience collectively recalibrates what they are willing to overlook. Even some of Trump's usual supporters in the room looked away, faces tightened, unwilling to be seen endorsing what the screen had just displayed. Behind the curtain, Barron stood in the corridor with his phone gripped so hard the screen threatened to crack. He could hear every word drifting through the fabric, the timelines, the audio, his father's words being laid in a row and read back to the room. His breathing was fast and shallow. Then the curtain flew open. Barron stormed back in. Face flushed, deep red, tie loosened, jacket half unbuttoned, phone in one hand like a weapon he hadn't decided whether to use. Nobody had expected him back. Heads turned instantly. He didn't wait for permission. He marched to the stage, grabbed a spare microphone, and started firing. "You think you can humiliate me and walk away?" His voice cracked at first, then steadied into something sharper and raw. He swung at Obama's record, unemployment figures, wages, identity politics, the division he accused Obama of cultivating while pretending to heal. He played a clip from his phone, Obama's own voice, years old, talking about family as the foundation of society, and glared at the former president with everything he had left. His voice rose. "You don't know anything about my family. You don't know what it's like." The last words broke on the edge of something real, the anger cracking open to expose the hurt underneath. His eyes glistened for one unguarded second before he blinked it away. Obama waited, let Barron run out of steam completely, then stepped back to the podium and spoke in a voice that was quiet and almost gentle, but carried every word to the back wall without effort. "Barron," he said, looking the young man directly in the eyes. "I get it. You're angry. You're defending your family. That's what sons do." A pause, not unkind. "But repeating lines you heard at home and swinging hard because that's all you've seen, that doesn't make it yours. Find your own voice, because right now you're just echoing." And echoes fade fast. Obama nodded toward the control booth. The screen came to life with a video call. Corey Lewandowski, Trump's former campaign manager, appearing from what looked like a home office. He spoke on record. He described the birther strategy not as an organic movement, but as a managed one, encouraged, sustained, and directed from the top. Weekly briefings, personal approvals, a family playbook handed down and expected to be carried forward. Barron froze. His phone dropped to his side. He stared at the screen, then at his father. The betrayal in his eyes was complete and immediate and impossible to hide. Trump shut up. "This is rigged. Turn it off right now." But the video ran its full length. Then the screen shifted to documents. Declassified emails, dates, and subject lines illuminated in sharp detail. Subject, birther strategy. Keep it alive. Weekly update. Candidate approves messaging. The Kenya angle sticks. One line highlighted in yellow. Trump approves continuing the birther push. Weekly check-ins confirmed. Distraction working. The room gasped. Loud, sharp, unanimous. Trump lunged for the spare microphone. His voice boomed through the speakers, calling it fabricated, calling it rigged, pointing at Obama, pointing at his own son, his words tumbling over each other in a torrent of fury that had lost all shape and structure. Security moved fast. 2 guards stepped between Trump and the podium. A third positioned himself in front of Obama. Trump kept pushing, chest straining against the barrier, veins visible on his neck and forehead, fists clenched, face cycling through shades that had no name. Obama did not flinch. He stood tall, hands visible, and held Trump's gaze with that same unshakable calm that had defined the entire night. Trump finally stopped pushing. He stood there breathing hard, staring at Obama, seeing the screen still glowing with his own team's words behind everything. He looked at his supporters, some looking away, some shifting uncomfortably, none of them quite prepared to clap for what the room had become. He looked at his son. Barron stood between the 2 men, tall frame broken at the shoulders, face contorted with pain, anger, and the particular shame of someone who has just been shown the architecture of the thing they were built to defend. "Dad," Barron said, his voice small and cracked, staring at the highlighted emails. "Is this real?" Trump turned to his son. His voice dropped, low, menacing, stripped of performance. "Don't you dare doubt me, Barron. Not now, not ever." The words hit like a slap. Barron's shoulders tensed. He said nothing. Trump sank back into his chair, heavily, finally, and went completely silent for the first time all night. His face had turned a pale, drained gray. His hands rested on his knees, fists still clenched, but the fight was gone. Just heavy, labored breathing and a man staring straight ahead at the consequences of a decade of documentation catching up to him in a single evening. Obama stood at the podium and spoke into the silence, softly but clearly. "This isn't about winning a shouting match," he said. "It's about what we leave behind. Anger, lies, division, or something better. Real leadership doesn't tear people down to feel big. It builds. It doesn't destroy families. It protects them." The room stayed completely still. Then Barron moved. He stepped forward slowly, legs heavy, until he stood a few feet from the podium. His tall frame looked exhausted, in a way that had nothing to do with the hour. His eyes were red. His face still carried everything that had hit him over the past 40 minutes. He looked at Obama, then at the floor, then back up. When he spoke, his voice came out shaky and quiet, barely above a whisper. "I was just repeating what I was taught." The words hung in the air over a completely silent room. He said it again, slightly louder. The way someone says something twice when they need to hear themselves say it to believe it's real. "I was just repeating what I was taught." It was the most powerful moment of the entire night. Not a prepared line, not a strategic move, but a young man standing in front of several hundred people and cameras and telling the truth about himself out loud for the first time. Trump tried to rise from his chair one final time. His face flushed again, his fist clenched. He began pushing himself up, mouth already open. Obama turned his head and looked at him. Just one look, Calm, steady, unshakable. Trump froze mid-motion, his mouth closed. The fire in his eyes flickered and guttered out. Slowly, with the heavy finality of a man who has run completely out of room, he sank back into his chair. For the first time all night, Donald Trump had nothing left to say. Obama gave a small nod, almost respectful, and stepped away from the podium without another word. He walked toward the side exit with the same deliberate calm he had carried into the room. Barron stood at the stage for a long moment. He looked at his father one last time, slumped in his chair, pale, silent, staring at nothing. Their eyes met briefly. Something passed between them that needed no translation. Then Barron turned his back on his father and walked out the same exit Obama had taken. The big screen faded to black. The lights dimmed. The only sound left in the ballroom was the slow, heavy breathing of Donald Trump, sitting alone in the front row, fists on his knees, jaw locked, completely, finally silent. A night that began with a rehearsed birther attack ended with a son walking away from the playbook he had been handed. Not with a shout, with a choice. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because the moments that define legacies rarely arrive with warning, and the next one is already forming. What we pass down outlasts everything we build. Make sure it's worth inheriting.